I grew up on a wheat farm in Kansas. I was a son of one of 5 kids on the farm. My dad was a World War II veteran who ran the farm, drove a milk truck, worked gas station, did a lot of jobs trying to get us through school. And basically, we did 5. I was the middle of, or second. I was the middle son, but the second of 5. Mm-hmm. And my mom was a school teacher, and the 2 of them together helped put all 5 of us through college. So we did real well. We had a good upbringing. I went to school for a couple of years thinking I was going to be an accountant. I was convinced coming out of high school that I would be a good CPA. I couldn't stay awake in accounting class and realized that that wasn't the job for me. So I knew numbers wasn't what I wanted to do. Numbers wasn't exciting. And I fell in love with words my sophomore year in college and stumbled into journalism. I never thought about it, never knew anything about it, never been in a newsroom before. And so at the end of my second year, I transferred to Kansas State University. I went right down to the Kansas State Collegian, which was the daily college newspaper, and asked for a job. They put me on as a reporter and a columnist. I eventually became an associate editor, running the copy desk at night and putting the paper out. But we were a morning daily, which was unusual. And so a lot of nights were just kind of dictating what goes where, laying out pages, working with the desk, and then going downstairs to proof. We were still on a hot lead press with a linotype operator, and the linotype operator, sometimes you had to go, she'd get drunk and pass out in the women's room, and so you have to go drag her out of there, but to finish the paper. But it was fun. It was the middle of, it would have been 1968, 69, 70, the height of the Vietnam War, the Summer of Love, Kent State, Black Power marches. There was a lot going on in this country, and exciting, heady time to be a journalist. I remember the month I graduated in 1970 was the month that the National Guard unit fired on the students at Kent State. Mm-hmm. And there were strikes all over the country. Some campuses, shut down. There were marches. And I remember that was the first protest march I ever marched in. And classes were out. And they were marching to burn down the ROTC building. And I got started, realized where we were headed, what we're doing, and I said, this isn't what I want to be doing, this isn't where I need to be. And I left the line and went back to the Collegian office, settled down behind my typewriter and started reporting the story. So I think that was when I really realized I was a journalist, and that was really, I wanted to be an observer. I wanted to tell the story about what was happening rather than be part of that. In the fall of 1970, I went to the Army. Went through basic training, Fort Leonard Wood. Told them that I was a journalist, wanted to be a journalist. I'd been trained to be a journalist. They said it was probably not possible. They were going to give me a rifle, send me to Vietnam. I ended up a journalist. I was there 8 months. I didn't get in a full tour, and then Nixon was bringing people home as fast as he could bring them home. And I came home on an early out from Vietnam and ended up back in Kansas, where I started, and went to Tulsa on a visit, ended up getting an interview with the Tulsa Tribune, and got the job. That's really, I haven't interviewed for very many jobs in my career. That was the first one. I got the first job I interviewed for, and worked on the copy desk of the Tulsa Tribune for 5 years. And I had an opportunity to interview for a job in Brazosport, at the Brazosport Fax. It's down on the coast. I was there 3 months, and there was a switch in the managing editor's role, and they promoted me up to managing editor. So basically, it was like five years and 3 months into my journalism career, I was running the newsroom. After 5 years there, I had another opportunity to go to Dallas, and that was to be the editor of the Arlington Daily News, which was a smaller paper as part of a larger group. I went from there to Owensboro, Kentucky, where I was the editor of the Owensboro Messenger Inquirer. I was there 3.5 years. Ended up getting back to Texas in 1994. And we were glad to be back in Texas. We just feel like Texas is where we love it here. We've always wanted to be here. And so I came back to Texas to be the managing editor of Tyler Morning Telegraph. And so So I've been here 20 years and 6 months. And I started as managing editor, and then a little over 5 years ago I became editor. Some of those more recent stories that I've been part of, I think 9/11, it probably has to be one of your top, one of those top stories that you remember, because I wrote a column once about it. It was 5 days before I really let myself shut down, before I really let myself have emotions about it and break down. And yet I broke down the way everybody else did. I didn't break down right away. I kept mine in check for long enough to kind of say, okay, we have told the story as best we can. I think the way we handled the courthouse shooting, I was just so proud of the staff that day, and so proud of how we were able to deal with breaking news. And the day the shuttle crashed, we put out an extra edition, put out a regular edition. We had people dispatched all over the area. We had the Dr. Lieberman's photo of the shuttle disintegrating overhead. We negotiated that with him and with the AP here in this newsroom, and made that happen, so that photo went around the world to hundreds, if not thousands, of front pages. And it came from Tyler, Texas. And Dr. Lieberman shot it, and it was wonderful that he was out there shooting it. But we helped get him in touch with the AP, which then put it out there. So I think we were honored by the AP for helping them do that, to make that happen. But I think the way we as a newsroom reacted to that was probably the proudest I've been of a staff. Almost, I would say anywhere. That's probably the time when I felt like this staff is just special. The proudest moment personally would be the night I got the Jack Douglas Award. And the Jack Douglas Award, of course, is the highest honor that the APME can bestow on anyone. So the Texas APME, that was a surprise, for one thing. We were having the national convention here in Tyler, and I was helping organize it. I'd been the past president of the APME, and so for them to give me that was the highest, proudest moment of my life, I think. And the changes right now are exciting. Yeah, it's different. We're going from a world where people used to all read the print newspaper, and now you get your news in 18 different ways. Much of it is online, much of it is digitally delivered to you. That changes the way we have to think about news. It changes the way that today's editors are going to have to change in the near future to adapt to that. I think, so that's probably one of the bigger changes. But I started, when news was still typed out on a typewriter, pasted together with a glue pot, and ripped apart with a pica pole, and you sized hard copy prints with a proportion wheel, and you sent them down to a big camera in the wall. We would send type from the typewriter, all stripped in a big long strip, to the linotype operators, and the linotype operators, tapped away and dropped lead slugs into a tray and sent them on through. So, and that was the way they did it for 100 years before I got to it. And so it hadn't changed much at all. It was very, very similar. Well, we went from, hot lead and linotypes to, offset presses, and scanner typewriters, and then to the first early Radio Shack computers for reporters. And then the computer systems were networked, and pretty quick you had banks of computers. Now you're talking, everybody's got a laptop, and everybody's got a cell phone. They can take pictures that are almost as good as some of the best stuff we shot back then with a cell phone. So the changes have been good, I think. I wouldn't want to go back. I mean, I think it's been an amazing journey through newspapers, and to watch the technology change the way we do things. But I think what's always been interesting to me is that even though the technology changed, the reporting didn't change, and it shouldn't change. The reporters still have to go out and ask the questions. They have to get deeper into the story than the average person might want you to get. You know, they get all the details and they spin it into a really, you know, hopefully an interesting story that's understandable, readable, that deserves to be on the front page. We've had all these technology changes that make things work in a whole different way, most of the times for the better, but the basics of journalism are still very solid, very sound. The same thing you're taught when you go through college right now is pretty much the same. The differences are now journalists are being trained to think in terms of 24 hours, 24 hour in a cycle. You know, you can't wait for the morning to put it in the paper. You put it up on the web right now. You get it out onto your newspaper app. You tweet it or Facebook it, or you do all those things. And I think that's changed. That's changed a little bit of how we think about the story we've created. The story's still going to be the same, you know, covered the same way, written the same way, but the way we present it to the public might be in little pieces immediately, rather than waiting for the full story to develop over a day. I think of myself as a journalist, you know, for my whole career. I've been a writer, I've been a columnist, I've been a photographer, I've been an editor, I've been a manager. All of it comes back to the same roots, which is the story, you know, telling the stories. I think it'll be bittersweet. It'll be hard to retire, hard to leave the newsroom. I think the fact that we have some really good people here leading this newspaper, and I know that I'm leaving it in good hands, and I know that the paper is thriving, will thrive, will do fine, and we'll see some changes and some challenges, but I think we'll see them through in a good way. It's an unknown. You know, retirement's always, what am I going to do when I don't have the excitement of a newsroom? Because a newsroom is one of the most exciting places you can work sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. And but not having that to go to is going to be different.